What's up, y'all? Happy Thursday. I don't even know what day of quarantine this is. Awesome sauce. Oh, let's get it cracking. What's up? What's up? What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was about to say I'm lit, but I would guess lit would mean like tipsy, right? And I'm not.
Not necessarily. You know how life may be.
Yeah, but I'm chill. I'm good. It's a good Thursday. I was just thinking about what day of quarantine this is, and I don't even know.
Yeah, I wasn't counting. I was not counting.
Well,
Hey,
thank
David.
you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is Be Great, Good to Great. We're highlighting people in their careers. And I have the wonderful, multi talented Buddie with us today. Buddie is a creative entrepreneur, model, photographer, designer, dancer. You name it, I'm sure Buddie does. So, Buddie, thank you for coming on. I actually knew Buddie or met Buddie back in college. So, Buddie, you went to U of I, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And also, I'm AKA, he's Alpha. So we got to link up there, and he would come to SIU. I'll come to U of I. And I was just speaking to him, and I was like, dang, I don't think I've seen you since those college times, which seems like a long time ago. But
Yeah, no.
that's neither here nor there. We're not going to get into that. So give us a little bit about your background, yeah, where you grew up, and what do you do now?
Okay. So, just to start with my background, I'm 26 years old. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And as a creative entrepreneur, I've been able to establish myself as a model, designer, dancer, and photographer. And what was the question? I'm trying to make sure that I hit
Just
everything.
yeah, just what do you do now, and where are you from?
Okay. So from Chicago, my family's from Nigeria. My dad's straight from Nigeria, and my mother's father's from Nigeria. So I have that whole heritage to me. And what I do now is that I'm still in the entrepreneurial space. I left the corporate world back in 2017, and I never looked back ever since then. And so now what I'm doing, especially in the midst of COVID, I'm doing
Mm.
real estate photography, and that's been like the main thing to just hold me over while this passes.
So, what degree did you get in college?
Nothing creative. So my degree in undergrad was actually in health administration. So the actual major was community health, and the concentration was health planning and administration.
Okay.
And from there, I did 2 years in corporate America, working for Cerner Corporation, and it
Okay.
was healthcare IT. So dealing with EMRs. So if I were to go to a healthcare facility, I was the guy that would help optimize these systems and train these doctors and nurses on how to use it.
Mm.
So I was a consultant for them, and while I did enjoy what I was doing, I didn't feel fulfilled
Mm.
in that space. And it caused me to, relocate to Kansas City, Missouri. So I was living there for some time. And during my time in KC, those were critical years for me, because if it wasn't for that time there, I don't think it would have really pushed me to really strive after what I really want to do. So,
Mm. Wow. And so how did all these other like endeavors come about, right? So you said you got your degree in health administration, and so that's
mhm,
you had that role, right? And then so
mhm.
have at that point were you like, okay, this is not what I want to do, so let me like get into the creative field, or like when did the creative juices start for you?
Well, the creative juices, they were always around.
Mm.
Um, it was just one of those things where like life started to make the decisions for me and
Mm-hmm.
put me in the right places to really go for it. So I would say the first thing that really gave me that creative foundation was dance. And I started dancing at the age of 12. And my
Okay.
background was Chicago footwork. So if you're familiar with Walla Cam or the War Zone or the Bud Billiken Parade, Channel 19, Positive Productions, like I did all that stuff in my younger days, and it's still like old videos on YouTube if you just look up Buddie O. And I would say that's what laid out, the start of my creative career, if you will.
Mhm.
And then as time went on, I went to high school, and I started, like, halfway through high school, I started to care more and be more particular about what I wore. And this is
Mhm.
where fashion started to come in, but I didn't start designing until 2014 is when my older brother Omar and I started our clothing business. But fashion was always around. And in
Mhm.
2015 is also when I started modeling. Now, in high school and college, I would do shows and stuff like that, but I took it seriously when I first moved to Kansas City, and I modeled for this designer named Jordan Williams, who has a neckwear brand, Keith Cravat. And he's a well-established local brand in Kansas City because he has a
Mhm.
crazy list of clientele, ranging from like athletes and a lot of professionals. And so I did the show for him, and then from there, I started to, build my network with the local designers and photographers that way. And that's when I started to build my portfolio. Between there and then going home to Chicago all the time
Mhm.
and working with local people. So like 2014, 2015 is when the designing and the modeling started. And photography came about like the end of 2015, because starting a business, we didn't have a lot of capital.
Right.
So paying for photo shoots was a little expensive after a while. So I picked up a camera and started to teach myself. And anything I didn't know, I would YouTube it or just talk to my friends who are photographers and ask them questions.
Uh-huh.
And as time went on, I gotten to train with some great photographers, or like gotten advice from great photographers such as like Stephen Green, Sean Andrew, Emmanuel Fisher, Jordan Spry, uh, Jasmine Lauren or Jay Lauren photography. And like I've learned, or the art hype, like these are all people that either based in Chicago, DC, or Kansas City that I've learned from
Mhm.
just from my time living in these different spaces.
Got it.
And hey, Kalia.
Yeah, what's up?
And so because of that, I was able to use the photography to not only help my business, but it helped me understand modeling more
Gotcha.
because I'm on both sides of the camera now. So all of these things is what developed my artistry.
Got it. So in the creative space, right? Like, how do you monetize with these? I know, like, with the clothing business, obviously you can sell product, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like with dancing, with modeling and photography, right? How do you capitalize and start to make money out of that, especially leaving like your corporate career, right? And I know you want to supplement
Yeah.
that income.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with dance because what I've learned as an entrepreneur, and you can have this debate with anybody who works in like a corporate space, or if they're not in a corporate space,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what your situation is, you're going to need something that's going to be that consistent cash flow that's going to act as your bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you are working a 9 to 5, all right, that's your bread and butter. But if you're an artist such as myself or anyone else, you have to find something else that will still sustain you, give you flexibility to move around like how you need to,
Mm-hmm.
but also keep you inspired. So
Right.
because of that, dance allowed me to do that. So when I left Kansas City a week before, so I'm just going to, not too many people know this. I actually got fired from that job in Kansas City, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's a long story. It's a long story, but I can like sum it up in one word. But
Okay.
yeah, terrible management, racism, there was a lot of stuff. But a week before I got fired,
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from a man. His name is C. Brian Williams. He's the founder of Step Africa and is the first professional dance company dedicated to stepping.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 2015, when I first graduated, I had auditioned to be a part of the dance company because I didn't want to go into corporate right away. I just wanted to, because they came to a show at U of I and I wanted to see what it was about. I was a finalist, but I didn't make it. But in 2017, I re-auditioned, and the week I got fired, Brian gave me a call. He offered me
Mm-hmm.
a full-time position with the company. And with that, so you're working at full time. It's my full-time job. You're literally rehearsing, you're touring, you're doing performances, master classes, you're going around the world. Like in my first year, I got to travel to the Middle East and perform and teach in
Wow.
Amman, Jordan. So that acted as my bread and butter. But luckily, I was in such a space that kept me inspired because dance and movement was more so therapy for me. I didn't look at it as work. I was just getting paid. You see what I'm saying? So with that, that allowed me to, and it allowed me to keep a clear enough head, and I was able to still be able to design when I was on the road, still able to handle operations for the brand, because I would like talk to my older brother or talk to some of our like our marketing people or anyone who's handling production for us, and to get things done. All I need is the internet and a laptop at the end of the day. So I'm able to do that on the road. And because of that, my time in Step Africa, that literally acted as my bread and butter. I did 2 years with the company and I regret nothing. You know, like it was just time for me to move on. That's why I left. And just to really focus on my own things. So that was what dance was for me. Photography, while I was still doing like fashion photography for my brand and like, you know, for other people, street photography as I would travel the world, and I would begin to, you know, charge for lifestyle shoots and any other work that people would do. So I developed a good portfolio that ranges from fashion to street to events, things like that. And because of that, I was able to build a good enough amount of clients and to keep busy. But unfortunately, due to COVID-19, any of these fields kind of all these fields actually got affected by it. But now I'm in real estate photography, so that's making up for it.
Got it.
And
so,
then,
go ahead.
What was the last one? Modeling? Okay, so for modeling, what helped? All right, so modeling was an uphill battle. I'm going to tell you that you really have to want to do this because you're going to get a lot of no's. You're gonna be told the most left field stuff, like you should cut your hair or you should only focus on one thing. Like there are people in the industry that will literally try to limit you, and you have to be able to take all the criticism, but only with a grain of salt. Don't take it to heart and never take anything personal. So with that, I didn't really like, people knew me for being in the modeling and like the content that I was putting out, but when I started that in 2015, I didn't really get crazy traction until 2019. I just stayed consistent throughout that time. And even back in 2016, like I told you earlier, like I spent, it was one time where I went to every agency in Chicago. And what ended up happening was that I got all these no's. I went to Wilhelmina, and it's me and this other guy, right? And this guy can't even formulate a sentence. And the reason why he's there is because his girlfriend told him he should be a model. So, yeah, so true, people try to put you in a box. So, we both filled out our stuff. They took our measurements. We both walked. They asked for him to stay, and they said they'll contact me. I never heard from him, right? This is back in 2016. I went to Factor Chosen, and they changed their name to MP Factor, and now they're Select Chicago. I went in there. It was about like a good 12 of us. I'm the only black person in there, like male or female, only black person. We get upstairs, and they told us to introduce ourselves and to tell us like what we do. So I told them, yeah, I'm a model and designer, and I'm wearing some of my clothes. Like I looked good that day. Like I made sure I thought out my outfit, and I was still wearing clothing that was suitable for a casting.
Right.
The guy literally told me we asked all of our talent to focus on one thing and one thing only. Made all of us leave and kept like 2 girls, right? Oh, Stephen Green just popped in here. Hey, bro, I just talked about you earlier. Like, that's also, Stephen Green is actually the guy who started my portfolio. He took my first shots. And then Sean Andrew was after him. So, like, that's my boy Steve. But, so yeah. As an African American in any type of field, you can't limit yourself, because what will end up happening, you have your counterparts who probably would do the bare minimum, and they could be mediocre, if you will. They'll end up getting the opportunity, though. So what you have to do is try your hardest to stand out, no matter what.
Right.
So that's why I took all these years to learn and master everything I can. So when I do get in this space, I make myself marketable. Now,
but that's funny that you said that, though, because like you do a lot of things, right? And pretty much the guy's telling you focus on one, but it's like, how yes, you want to make stuff marketable, but marketable doesn't mean doing one
one
thing,
thing.
right?
Yeah, you have to be able to leverage yourself. And I've learned that just from even in undergrad doing group projects. I learned that from being with my ships, being online. I learned that working with members of Step Africa, because you have to pick up other skills. Like if I'm like, even in Step Africa, if I'm only a dancer, but let's say someone is hurt and they can't drum, I learned how to drum just in case they needed me, and I've drummed for shows. So you have to make yourself learn everything, make yourself expendable. So back in 2016, after MP Factor, I went to Tim Management, and Tim Management is the agency that I'm with now. And David was in here. He was like one of the first people to join. I don't know if he's still in here. And so when I first met him, he took a look at me and he was like, you know what? I really like your look, but I don't know what we can do for you right now. And he gave me a list of other places to check out. And in all my years, what's up, Tevin? In all my years, he was the only person who was at least that straight up with me.
Wow.
Said he liked me, but he don't know what we can do at this time. And this was years ago. So, but I didn't quit. You know, I moved to the East Coast after that, and I was back and forth between DC and New York, just trying to see what was in there, and I was continuing to build my portfolio. And then fast forward into 2019, and this is when things started to pick up for me. Spent my summer in Chicago. I reached back out to David from Tin Management, because one thing that I've learned is like brand association is very important. And I looked at the board of all these agencies and I looked at the type of work they're putting out. Tin Management was the most diverse to me. And I saw myself really thriving because I knew they worked hard at that agency. So I reached out to him again, and I brought up that old interaction, and I told him, like, you know what, there's no agency in Chicago that I want to sign with other than Tin Management. And he remembered me, and he said, you know what, come into the office, we'll have a conversation, blah, blah, blah. I went in, we talked, and then a week later, he hit me up and said, it's not a no, but it's not a yes either. So basically, I had to pursue it. And this reminded me of taking a like pre-pledging or whatever the case is. So he said, I'm going to give you a list of photographers. I'm going to give you 2 weeks. If you can get a test shoot done with any of these photographers and you show me those shots, we'll see what we can do. One of the photographers didn't respond. The other one did. His name is Christopher Mars. And I reached out to him. I got it done in a week. Send it to him. 2 days later, he sent me a contract.
He wanted to see that you could show that you're going to do it, be a go-getter.
I got it done in a week. He gave me 2. I'm like, I was trying to get it done the next day, if you ask me, but you know, I had to make sure that Chris was available and what worked for him. But yeah, it's just like you have to realize that this is an uphill battle, and you can't quit. You have to want it bad than almost anything else. Because for me to be going all those years to being told no, I had interviews in New York and they told me no. And for me to persevere and not give up and finally get that traction that I've been looking for, a week after I signed, I got booked for my first gig.
Wow.
So
what keeps you going, right? What keeps you hungry to like be consistent, right? Because I know, you know, it's taken you years, you know, to get to now, like getting this traction with modeling, with even, I know with dancing, you got to pick up stuff, but it seemed like you've been dancing for a long time. So even with that, right, it's been taking you a while, and to be consistent, what keeps you hungry and doesn't like veer you off and be like, you know what, forget it. I'm going to put all my effort into this clothing business and just like make money and chill.
Well, I guess what keeps me going, I would say for sure, I'm too stubborn to quit. And that could be a blessing and a curse, because sometimes, well, I know myself well enough. Like, I'm aware of myself, and I know when I'm good at something, and I know when I need some work. And if it's something that I know that I'm great at, can't nobody tell me otherwise. You may not see it, and it's probably not for you to see. So that's one element of it. Another element is like I've gotten close enough to taste what the other side is like. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it. I've been there. I've interacted with that space. And if I'm only like a couple degrees away of separation, that's motivation for me. And
Got
then also, when the money comes in, I'm not complaining because
it.
in this field, you always have to figure out where the next coin is coming from. Because everything I'm doing doesn't necessarily have a safety net unless I'm already established. And I know I will get there because it took me so long to get here. And I've put too much into it to give up now. Do you get what I'm saying?
Got it.
So I hope that
Ari,
answers the question.
Ari said you booked and busy.
Oh, she knows. And she's been there that whole journey. Aside from like me dancing at 12, but like everything else, she's been there the whole ride.
So you just touched on it, right? Like you don't know where your next coin is coming from, and like this business is not unless you said like you're with a company or somebody that gives you consistent booking or like a long contract. The
mm-hmm.
money is sporadic, right? How do you deal with that and like especially like the mental and emotional stress of like, I might have it this month, but I don't know if I'll have it next month.
Well, look, yeah, it's how can I answer that? It's so complex. I would say this throughout every phase that I've gone through, not necessarily phase, but like every period that I've gone through throughout entrepreneurship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always made sure that there was something that was in some way consistent.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be like every 2 weeks, but it's like if I can plan it out far enough in advance, I know for this month, that month, and that month, I have a couple gigs. So I at least have like three or how many ever months to figure the rest out as I go.
Got it.
And a lot of it is rolling the dice, but it's like you have to prepare for that and know this is what you're signing up for.
Mm-hmm.
So like for instance, when I was in New York back in February, I met another model. This was for a show we were doing in Fashion Week. I met a model and he was telling me that he works at a dispensary. And I'm just giving examples for people who may be in the same realm. He works at a dispensary. Now we know, like, since they legalized weed, dispensaries been getting a lot of business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know about right now, but like before COVID,
Yeah.
it allowed him to get as much flexibility where if he needed to take time off to go do this show or to go to this casting, he was able to do that. But also his hours were so great. If you know he's not doing anything, he can make a good amount of money during this week, to help balance it out. And that's what worked for him. As for myself, for 2 years I was doing Step Africa. It kept me inspired and it still allowed me to do what I needed to do. Now, since I was in the whole transitional phase after Step Africa, and the modeling bookings they were increasing. I was doing a great deal of dance workshops and master classes in between,
Mm-hmm.
photography gigs, and still designing clothing. Right now, since COVID came about, a lot of artists that may be in these fields, they're feeling it right now because a lot of work has stopped. And it was 1 month where stuff was pretty dry for me. And I'm going to admit that to everybody who's watching. Luckily, me being as frugal as I am, I had a savings that helped me out.
Two
But
for five. Two
but
for five.
everybody ain't able. That's just being honest. Like I'm just gonna be honest about it. Luckily, I had a savings that did help me out. But in the event that you don't have that, I was able to find something
Mm-hmm.
that's going to bring some money coming in. And my girlfriend helped me out with that because I was looking for all these photography jobs. Mind you, after I left South Africa, I left back in June of last year. I applied to so many jobs, whether they may be in fashion, dance, and even what I went to undergrad for. I didn't receive any callbacks, a bunch of denial letters. And in that whole period, from the end of June, literally to about a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
I was just hustling.
Wow.
Dance workshops, modeling gigs, photography gigs, whatever the case is. Like I did a couple corporate events, and that was helping me out. Like I was still able to balance it out. And literally up until a week ago, because a week ago is when I started doing real estate photography. A few weeks
Mhm.
before that, I interviewed. I had to go through a certification class to do real estate photography. And once that cleared, now I found that thing that's consistent and still keeps me inspired because I'm learning a new form of photography now.
So pivoting, pretty much. You're pivoting and you're trying to figure out things until life gets back to normal. I don't want to move past these
Mm-hmm.
comments too. So Sierra Ashley said, "Buddy, you are killing it. So proud." Since I think it's Kimo Sav said, "Good to see you. Still going crazy, brother."
Oh, that's I came. That was my old resident undergrad. I was a RA my senior year.
Oh, that's what's up. And that's, you
Oh
know what,
man,
that I brought up in one of my stories last night, and I think you brought up your girlfriend, but like being in your 20s and dating, right, and having like a good
mm-hmm.
partnership, right, about helping each other out. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh yeah, because I'll say one thing, she's definitely patient. Because it's like everyone's not able to like deal with being with, not necessarily deal with, but everyone's not able to handle being with a creative because it's
Mm-hmm.
very stressful. Think about we in our 20s, you know, a lot of people who are like maybe dating to marry and they're looking for stability or to be taken care of, but in a partnership it should be about building,
Mm-hmm.
right, and trying to establish something for the both of you, for the both of y'all. So there may be times where things may be a little shaky, but I was never at a point where, at least financially, I was ass out.
Right, right.
Now, mentally, yeah. Emotionally, sure. Like I was stressed out, you know, like I wasn't in the right headspace, but I made sure financially I was never screwed.
Yeah, right,
It was just like, oh snap, it's a little slow right now. I got to go figure this out. Let me go do this. Let me teach a couple more classes. Let me see if I can
right.
freeze in this photo shoot. But yeah, it's it. You really got to want it because it will weigh you down if you allow it.
Yeah, yeah. Literally, if you, even now, right, like complaining about COVID and situations, if you keep complaining, right, I was watching some video today, so like complainers attract other complainers, and like it's not gonna help you.
It's not. It's really not. Like it's so like we're human. I understand we're emotional. I'm hella emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's okay to grieve. And I feel like we do this thing where I know I do it a lot, where you try to have this hard exterior and just try to act like nothing's bothering you, like you're unbothered. I don't necessarily show it, but when I'm at home or if I'm in my head, I'm so indecisive and I contemplate a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's okay. It's normal. It's okay to have these feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
what you don't do is loathe and sit in it forever because that's not going to help you. Because guess what? Mortgage still got to get paid. You probably got student loans. You still got all these bills. You got to eat.
Yep.
All right. So take that time. Take that time to be stressed. Take that time, you know, to feel how you feel. But once you're done, what's next?
I feel that. Kalia said, "How does one get into real estate photography? How did you find out even about that opportunity? I'm not familiar with it."
Oh, thank you for asking that because I definitely missed it. There's a lot of stuff going through here. But actually my girlfriend found that one. She found it. So we was looking up different photography jobs and she came across real estate photography through this company called Home Visit.
Mm-hmm.
And I filled it out, the application, and it was a questionnaire that came with it. They asked like what type of camera do I got, what type of materials did I use. And I told them, then I interviewed, and they said, you know, for this job, you're going to need this, this, and this. So, like, I had to buy a new lens because I needed an even wider lens. So I have like a 14 millimeter that I use strictly for work because you have to make the spaces look bigger than what they actually are.
Oh.
That's a little trick, just so y'all know that. But, so yeah, I had to buy a couple more equipment, but like, I just literally applied. And then I sent them my portfolio as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they know I don't do real estate photography, but they really like the work that I've done for like street and fashion. So
Got it.
they brought me on, and then that's when I had to do a certification course. I did the course. It took me a while. I was supposed to have 2 weeks, but I needed 3
Mm-hmm.
because one of those weeks I actually felt sick. I had the flu.
Mm-hmm.
And then they gave me an extension and I finished it out. And like with that, it was a written exam, and then I actually had to do like a photography exam and like go to test properties and shoot it. So I did my place, I did my ship's place, I did a couple friends' place. I did Allen Place from BH. because he ain't stay too far from me. So like I did his place and submitted it. They cleared me and let me through. Submitted some onboarding documents, and I've been working doing real estate photography, and it's so far so good.
So Channy Lou, I think I said that right.
That's Chandler. Yeah, that's the homie.
He said, "What's next for you?" And proud of you, and beyond encouraging. But what's next for you?
Well, next thing for sure is to just stay corona free, because
yes,
I didn't realize how crazy it was until Black people really started to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because everybody was kind of joking about it, because you weren't too many cases with us, and then just seeing how severe it is in African American neighborhoods, especially where we're subject to having all these pre-existing conditions because of like our environment and systemic racism, with people having hypertension, asthma, diabetes, stuff like that. So it's like if you have anything like that, you're more likely to contract it, and it's going to affect you. So I've been trying to like stay away from people and making sure that I'm making money however I can. I'm still selling my merch, literally without marketing at all. So a week and some change ago, I did a Chicago Forward workshop, and I wore one of our new suits that I haven't taken any product shots or anything for, and I had so many inquiries, I was still able to sell it. So like now, what's next for me is really just be resourceful on how I'm gonna move my product.
And then he actually has another question too. I'm gonna pop it up in here. Top 3 things you are grateful to have that you've learned about yourself and and Ari during quarantine.
I had to think about that one. I'm grateful for to have learned about myself. Okay, about myself more so. During this quarantine, I was actually able to really sit and dig within to really figure out what exactly do I desire. And in the event something like this was to ever happen again, making sure that I'll still be able to provide. Gotcha. That's number one. So it's like I normally do great under pressure, and this was a situation that provided a great amount of pressure. So it's like, all right, cool. That's number one for me. Number 2 is also just realizing when you're in a partnership is like not necessarily knowing each other's schedule, but it's like knowing how to back each other up when you need it. So it's like if I know she's dealing with stuff with work, I have no problem getting up and cooking, because we kind of like split everything up when it comes to like stuff around the house. Like I cook, she cook, we both clean. It don't really matter. And also just knowing if you're in a confined space with somebody for a long amount of time, you got to know how to give each other that space. Right. Because it can get a little crazy. Like I'm talking to like some of my family members who are all in the house together. And if you're not used to being around each other that long, you could be at each other's throats. And then I'm talking to my friends who are isolated. I try to talk to them as much as I can to make sure that they're still there. Because if you by yourself, like we still need human interaction. You got to find that balance. And you've been in the same space with somebody, you got to know like, hey, if I'm in here, I'm working on something, doing this or doing that. All right, I'm gonna give you your space. Right. And I'm just hoping you respect the same. I hope that answered the question, Chandler. That was a good question.
One of the big things that I wanted to ask you, right? So when people are dancing in Chicago, right? Most people, even like for acting, right? They want to go to LA. Everybody wants to go to New York. Everybody wants to move their career outside of Chicago because they don't feel like Chicago has that foundation to build their career. What do you think about Chicago and dance and like the infrastructure that they have here?
Oh, love you too, friend. I see it right there. So for sure, I would say, I guess it relates for like dance and fashion, but like specifically to dance, I would definitely say if you are a dancer in Chicago, we all know like the handful of studios that are there. Now, definitely if you're in Chicago, utilize these spaces because these businesses still need to thrive. Like Dynamic Force, which is in Lacuna Lofts, like I use them when I'm in Chicago. I've also used Healthy Hood Shot when I'm in Chicago for workshops. Like use these spaces. You have the American Rhythm Center. And there's a great deal of artists and classes that they offer throughout the city so you can, you know, expand your skill set. However, if you're really trying to thrive in the industry, Chicago doesn't have those enterprises there unless you're trying to do like Broadway in Chicago for whatever groups that are out there. But you kind of, it's unfortunate. And it's kind of going back to that whole rhetoric of like, you know, you can't blow up where you from. You got to leave to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest dance, the biggest cities for dance are New York and LA. And we know that.
Right.
They have all of the talent agencies that are specific to dancing. So I'm not saying just like pick up and uproot your life. No, because we have the internet. We have all these other resources. Now, if you go viral, yeah, you cool for about like a week. But if you want longevity, this is what I was doing for modeling, right? I would go crash at Chandler's crib. I would be sleeping on her couch. Or I'll crash at Brenton's house. Or crash at Aaron's house. Like, leverage your friends who may have moved to these cities. You work, save up some money, spend about a month or a couple weeks. Go to New York, go to LA, couch surf if you have to. Toss them some bread for their troubles, right? And you go to these auditions, you go to these castings, and you do the best you can. Now, just because you go to one audition doesn't mean anything. And I want people to realize that. I understand, like, there's no city more talented than Chicago. However, it's not about what you know. It's about who you know at the same time. Because I'll give a similar story. It was, I was in New York, and it was a collab with Alexander Wang and Adidas. This is before I got signed. I was just out there independent, and they were looking for non-union people. I went. The song that they wanted us to dance to was Kanye's Workout Plan. Mind you, I submitted my dance portfolio, my IG page, and they saw all the stuff that I can do, and they really wanted me to come in. I went. I'm probably the oldest person there. Mind you, I'm 26. This happened when I was 25. It was a year ago. Mm-hmm. You got these Gen Z people. They didn't even know what Kanye's workout plan was. Right?
Okay.
I get in there. We go into groups of 4. I learned the choreo in like 2 minutes. I get in there. I washed them kids. Like, it was so bad. Like, I embarrassed them. And then when I freestyled, I'm like pulling stuff out of the bag, just trying to make myself memorable. Right? Mm-hmm. They ended up scratching that whole thing and ended up using a bunch of people who are already signed. So I'm saying all that to say, because I already know if it's something that I'm good at, no one's touching me.
Right.
But that don't matter. What matters is opportunity, being in the right space at the right time, and what your network is like.
So pretty much saying too, if you're talented, like, it's cool, but like that's not enough.
That's not gonna cut it. Like, unfortunately, talent alone won't cut it. You have to make yourself memorable. You have to build a relationship. You have to know people in these spaces. I'm not saying knowing the top guy, but if you don't know somebody, get to know somebody. And maybe if you don't make it for that gig, they'll consider it and they'll remember you for the next joint. Do you see what I'm saying?
How do you network as a dancer, or a photographer, or artist, right? It's not as simple as business networking where I can go to an event and like meet someone at like a specific conference, unless there are conferences for it. But like, how do you network the right way without coming off ingenuine or just like sliding into somebody's DMs?
Well, I would say one thing about networking, it doesn't necessarily matter the realm that you're in. Mm-hmm. You kind of just gotta have great people skills. Like, if you know how to talk, that's like half the battle. Mm-hmm. So I've been in these professional spaces where I have to like talk to the CEO of this person, but I know how to carry a conversation. So if you can find something common, because you got to think about it, you got these guys who may be in whatever position, and they're probably dealing with this work all day, and they're probably tired of dealing with it. If you can break the ice by bringing up something that is completely unrelated, I can guarantee you that conversation will be so much more meaningful than it would have been if you would have came up instantly talking about, let's say if it's somebody for Clear Talent. Oh, how did the Clear Talent auditions go? They probably don't want to talk about it because they probably just saw 150 people. You see what I'm saying? Right. But if you can find something that could spark a conversation. We're all human at the end of the day. I hope that answered the question.
I did. Do you have any mentors or like people in the businesses that you do that kind of help you stay lifted and keep you like, on like, how to learn more things? I know you said in photography you did, but
Yeah.
do you went in for like dance?
Oh, for dance, mentors as far as dance. Well, I would say, yeah, I definitely did, because at least like I had to learn how to fork from someone, and it was my older cousin, Torrance. He taught me like my first set of basics, right? And then as time went on, my brother Omar and my cousin Mecca, they saw what we were doing. They started to catch on, and then we started to build like a community, like with our close friends and like relatives, and we all helped each other out. And then if we got cool with people from other groups, we would all help each other out as well. And like there were older people in those groups that I looked up to, and when I talked to them and conversed with them, I would pick up knowledge, or we would battle each other, and that helped me get better. I always fought out of my weight class, no matter what. Like I was a little kid going against grown men, but that's because I felt like no one in at least my weight class could mess with me. I always bit off more than I can chew. So when it came to that, it was really, going against people who have more experience. That's what kind of helped me in the long run. And that's at least as far as dance goes, right?
So
And
pretty
at
much
least
all
in
those
now.
older people are your mentors, and all the people that were pretty much
Yeah.
your you just look up and be like, oh, okay, I can do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's at least with dance. Now I would say for like photography and modeling and even designing, a lot of these people that I would consider mentors, I probably never met in my life. It's just like I followed their work for so long. So I would say, at least for fashion and designing, Ralph Lauren's my number one. And then I would put like a Taz Arnold for like styling, and Sir Michael Rocks for styling, Jerry Lorenzo for streetwear design. Uh, who else? Gary Basement, just for art. So these are the people that I look up to. And I mean, then you got like your Kanye's and your Virgil and things like that. But it's like these are the people that I really paid attention to when I started to take fashion seriously. Like Sir Michael Rocks don't get the credit he deserves. I'm gonna say that right now. From the cool kids, here's the reason I started wearing skinnies. Like it runs deep. But these are the people that I look up to, and even my older brother, because he got into fashion before I did, and then it's just like I saw what he was doing, but I wanted to add my own twist to it. So it's like we're completely opposite of one another, but he was inspiration for me.
Got it. What does an artist like mean to you, right? Like I know when you think of just like the creative space, right? It's so broad, and I think people have an association to one thing. Some people think of like a painter. Someone thinks of like I don't know, photographer, right? What does being an artist mean to you?
So being an artist to me means any form of expression. So really expressing something that you're not what you're talented in, yeah, but that you're passionate about, more importantly. So it can be through painting, it could be through writing, it could be through movement. That's why dance is kind of my first love when it came to art. It could be designing, cutting and sewing. Modeling is still art at the end of the day. Like people try to like, shade models and don't give them like the respect that they actually deserve. But putting together those shows and those installment shows and those runway shows, like that stuff is not easy. Putting together a campaign, you know how exhausting like being shot in a campaign can be? Like that's art, because you see this model wearing this dress that came from whoever, but the way that she's wearing it and the setting that she's in and the editing in the pictures, like that whole creative team that went behind it, is going to make you want to buy it. But at the same time, just off of the strength that Iman Hammam is wearing that dress makes you want it even more. Or based off of the strength that Luka Sabat is wearing that jacket, you want it even more. You see what I'm saying? So it's all art to me. As long as art to me is expressing something that you're passionate about.
Got it. And then when you're talking about going to these agencies and going to these auditions, can you explain kind of how many people that you've seen that are like minorities that are leading these companies, or like on the board, or like people that are like making these decisions? Or is it more of just like the dancers going for the auditions that kind of that are more the minorities, right? I think in executive positions in business, we see that like most of regular managers and below are minorities, and then in the C-suite, it's like bare none, like none.
Right. Excuse me. I would say, at least for modeling, and you have some agencies trying to fix that, but you have some who are still so old school. I would say overall, we still need more minorities in these positions because we all know that minorities, specifically African Americans, we kind of dictate culture because we create it, right? However, you have people in these positions who can get to decide who gets to be seen, but they can't necessarily relate because they're not from the culture.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, locks weren't a good thing as far as the fashion industry, right? At least for Chicago. In New York, it was starting. Like, people were starting to catch on. Now, there's so many models with locks getting signed, right? But it had a negative connotation even back then. But now let's not talk about like 10, 15 years ago. It was a lot worse. So we definitely need more people of color in these positions. And you have some agencies who are really trying. Now, when it comes to the talent that comes to these, that go to these auditions or they go to these castings, whether you're a dancer or a model, I will see so many black people when I go to these castings. And it's a beautiful thing. But I also know we all ain't gonna make it. And
right.
It sucks because I'll be networking, we're exchanging Instagram, and I'm looking like, oh man, this person's cold, this person's dope, this and that. But they get overlooked. But the person that they do pick look basic. It's just like everybody else. Like, I can literally find you walking down the street. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But also, art is all subjective. It's like my eye is different from somebody else's eye. I can see the potential in somebody else that they may not. Right. That's why, like, when this is all said and done, like when I'm done being a model, at whatever point that is, I would love to mentor or be like a casting agent or whatever the case may be, because I want to build a good enough reputation where I can help people just like me. That's why, like, I do respect these minority ran agencies. Then they're doing a great job, because like one of my favorite agencies that's based out of Atlanta and New York is DeMonte St. Clair, and that dude is a beast. He picks all the right people, and the majority of his board is black people. Sheck West is signed to his agency.
Oh, okay.
So like, he has the most diverse board to me, and I love it because he's doing it right. Now the agency I'm with, 10 Management, they're doing a great job because they're picking up a lot of minorities, and you can see it on the board. So it's changing, but it's like we're not there yet.
Gotcha. What advice would you give to, let's say, other artists, right, that are doing similar endeavors as you and that are trying to juggle different things too, right? I mean, we all of us millennials juggle different types of, businesses or hobbies or whatever we want to do. But like, what advice would you give to people who are just coming up and like, or they want to dance, right? Like, what advice would you give to them that maybe you wish you would have told yourself a few years ago?
For one, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I know as artists, well, we're all artists and we're all sensitive about our stuff. There may be some videos that you may have, or content you may have created, and you're just sitting on it, and you're probably waiting for the right time. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's never necessarily the right time. Just go with it. If you're feeling it today, put it out there, because you never know. Like, it could be the one thing that you probably wasn't feeling the least that actually takes off for you. I'm not saying put out anything in it that's mediocre, but what I am saying is, I'm gonna give you an example. YG and Ty Dolla $ign. You know what song made them blow up? Tooted and Booted.
Tooted and Booted.
Tooted and Booted. That song made them blow up, and they both said in an interview that they both absolutely hate that song. It was a stupid song, but that's what blew up for them. Now, I'm not saying put anything that's stupid, but it's like if you trust yourself in your craft, it shouldn't matter what you're putting out, long as it looks good and that you're, you know, double and triple checking everything. It shouldn't matter. So that's one thing. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Two, learn all you can. If you have a specific concentration, figure out what classes are going on in your city. And if you do want to travel to another city like LA or New York or Atlanta, there's so many studios there. Figure out what dancers are in that area. Hit them up. See if y'all can collab and create some videos, some content, and go take some classes. You have all these choreographers who will do like a guest pop-up workshop. Get in there, push yourself, and see how good you really are. And if you're good enough, you might end up in a class video, you know? And you shouldn't worry about how you look necessarily, because you're gonna learn something regardless. The lesson is really just being present and embracing it.
How can people stay connected with you, right? If people want to reach out to you, people want to book you, how do people stay connected?
Well, I'm honestly one of the easiest people to get in touch with. Like for one, like my social media, Buddie_O. I spell Buddie with an IE. And it depends on what you're trying to book me for. So like if you need photography work, you have Buddie O Photography, which you should see down there at the pinned comment. But or you can just hit up my regular Instagram, click the link in my bio, you can see my website. If you're looking for merch, UE Supply Co. That's also right there. And anything that's modeling related, you do have to go through Tim Management though.
Okay.
Because I have representation, so you need to contact David or Zach, Tim Management. You should see their tag. Like if you look at my bio on Instagram, you'll be able to click them and just contact them and just ask about me. Yeah.
And then I always like to end these IG lives by saying, who do you know that's being great in your life, right? It can be somebody who's influencing you, maybe somebody that you see in your personal network that's like taking off, doing cool things, or even like your support system. Like it's not just one person, but like you can name people right now that are just like, you know, keeping you lifted, or you see somebody like, man, they're grinding just like me. I love it.
Oh man, I got a list of people who really inspire me, but I would say as of right now, he's another one of my mentors. He's actually based out of DC, the DC area. His name's Dio. He goes by the Art Hype, so THEARTHYPE. He's a photographer, and he's done like work with Ralph Lauren, Cadillac, GQ, Hugo Boss. He shot at Fashion Week, and he actually shot a lot of my content as well. I mentioned this earlier. It was like, you know, like the song "Middle Child," like you big homie, big bro and little bro at the same time. Like Dio's in his upper 30s. I'm 26, so it's like I have little homies that still look at me for advice, and it's like I'm literally in the middle, still trying to figure this out. So when I do get in my head, sometimes I do go rap with him. Sometimes I go to the dojo, which is the studio that they work out of, and I just talk to him, and he be kicking knowledge, and it's because he's been there before. So with that now, it's like I'm getting older and I'm learning more and more, and I would definitely say like he's somebody who's been like a pillar and always putting on for his people, and he always puts on. If you African, he really gonna put on. He gonna put on for you because you African. So yeah, I would say him for sure, who's doing great things. And just even like aside from that, like I'm on a list of mentors that like life mentors that I always talk to. Like Mike Harden, he's the founder of Caribbean Grill, which is a Caribbean restaurant in Champaign, Illinois. He's also my pro fight. And just throughout my journey and everything I was going through, I always kept him updated on what was going on, because for some reason he's just always stayed well. And that's also because he's been through these stages of life already. Like he got 2 kids, he married, like he's been there. So yeah, that's definitely somebody else that who's always looked out. And I don't really ask much, just needed advice, you know. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Buddy, for coming on, educating these people, talking to people, especially about your journey, different stories that you have, advice, programs,
Mhm.
and even like talking about in general, like wanting to help people that are just like yourself, which you are already right now. So thank you so much. I'm gonna record or not record. I'm gonna save this
Okay.
and I'll put it on IGTV, on Be Great LLC, and on YouTube so that you can reference this after too.
Cool.
Um,
Cool.
we want to share it with people because I know it's definitely very knowledgeable. So thank you again, and thank you everybody for tuning in and asking questions too. Definitely made this